They say you are what you eat, a phrase people throw around without a second thought. I've had 35 years to think about it, ever since the day I found out what locally sourced truly meant and had to swallow the horrifying truth about my missing friend. You get to a certain age, let's say, north of 50, and you start taking stock. You look at your hands, see the scars and the liver spots, and you realize they're not just your hands anymore. They're a record. A history book written in flesh. My hands tell a story of 35 years in a wood mill. Of splinters the size of needles and calluses as thick as boot leather. They tell the story of building things. Solid things. Cabinets, chairs, shelves, things that are meant to last. I suppose, in a way, it's been my life's penance. Building things to make up for the one night I helped tear everything apart. It was the summer of '89. The air in Blackwood Creek was always thick and heavy back then, smelling of cut grass, diesel fumes, and something else, something heavier. The metallic, coppery tang that would drift over from the edge of town. That was the smell of the Hallett meat plant. It wasn't a slaughterhouse in the traditional, massive sense. It was a processing facility. A weigh station. The cattle came in on one side, and boxes of vacuum-sealed cuts went out the other. It was one of the town's biggest employers, a place of grim, bloody efficiency that we all just sort of accepted. It was the smell of money, my dad used to say. To me, it was always the smell of death. I was 17. And like most 17-year-old boys in a town with nothing to do, I was an idiot. My crew was no better. There was Russ, our undisputed leader. He had that easy, thoughtless confidence that fools people into thinking he knows what he's doing. Then there were a couple of others, interchangeable guys who were just along for the ride. And then, there was Andrew. Andrew was different. He wasn't tough or cool. He was wiry and nervous, always fidgeting, always trying too hard. He came from a family that had it rougher than the rest of us. His dad had lost his job at the paper mill, and there was a quiet desperation that clung to Andrew like the cheap cologne he used to douse himself in. And he always wore this flimsy, royal blue windbreaker, no matter how hot it was. It was his prized possession. The idea, like most terrible ideas, started with a rumor. Andrew had been hanging around the fringes of some genuinely bad people. Not kids like us who threw eggs at houses, but guys in their 20s with dead eyes and track marks. He'd overheard one of them, a greasy character we called Scab, talking about a score. Apparently, the manager at the Hallett plant was running a side hustle. Skimming cash, maybe a little small-time loan sharking. Scab claimed the guy kept a lockbox full of cash hidden in his office. Easy pickings, he said. A few $1,000s, just sitting there. For Scab, it was probably just idle talk. For Andrew, it was a lifeline. He brought the idea to us one scorching afternoon down by the creek. Russ, at first, scoffed at it. Robbing the Hallett plant? You're insane, Andy. Old man Abernathy works the night shift. Guy's a Vietnam vet. They say he sleeps with one eye open and a tire iron under his pillow. But Andrew was persistent. He was almost vibrating with a manic energy. He's old, Russ. He probably just sits in the front gatehouse all night playing solitaire. We go in the back, through the loading bays. Scab said the office is right near there. In and out. 10 minutes. We split it 4 ways. Think about it. $1,000, maybe more. Each. He wasn't selling a heist. He was selling a dream. A dream of new cars, of getting out of this dead-end town, of respect. And Russ, for all his bravado, was just as trapped as the rest of us. The idea, stupid and dangerous as it was began to take root. For me, a knot of dread was already forming in my gut. But I was 17, and the fear of being called a coward was greater than the fear of getting caught. So, like a sheep, I nodded along. A week later, under a moonless, star-pricked sky, we were there. We'd ridden our bikes, the crunch of gravel under our tires sounding like gunshots in the silence. The plant loomed over us, a hulking metal beast, silent except for the low hum of its refrigeration units. The air here was thick with that smell. Iron and bleach. It coated the back of your throat. Russ, to his credit, was a natural at this. He had a small crowbar and popped the lock on a side door to the loading bay with a sickeningly quiet snap. The sound echoed in the vast, cavernous space inside. We slipped in, one by one, into the oppressive dark. The only light came from a few yellowed safety bulbs spaced far apart, casting long, distorted shadows that danced like specters. The place was a maze of stainless steel. Conveyor belts, hooks hanging from the ceiling like metallic claws, and massive, silent machines whose purpose I didn't want to contemplate. Everything was damp. The concrete floor was slick under our sneakers, and a constant, slow drip, drip, drip echoed from somewhere deep within the facility. Andrew pointed, his hand shaking slightly. The office should be that way. We moved like ghosts, our hearts pounding a frantic rhythm against our ribs. Every scrape of a shoe, every nervous cough, felt like a betrayal. We found the office, a small, glass-walled cage overlooking the main processing floor. The door was locked. This time, Russ's crowbar made more noise. The splintering of the wood jambs sounded like a thunderclap. We froze, listening. Nothing. Just the hum and the drip. Inside, we tore the place apart. It was a frantic, desperate search. We pulled out desk drawers, tipped over file cabinets, peeled old calendars off the wall. Nothing. No lockbox. No cash. Just shipping manifests and employee time cards. The mood turned sour fast. Russ grabbed Andrew by the collar of that stupid blue windbreaker. "Where is it, Andy? Where's the damn money?" "I don't know." Andrew squeaked, his voice cracking. "Scab said it was here." He swore it was. "Scab played you for a fool," I hissed, my own fear turning to anger. "And you played us. Let's just get out of here." That's when we heard it. A heavy, metallic clang from the far end of the processing floor, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps. Abernathy. Panic, cold and absolute, washed over us. There was no plan for this. We scattered. It was pure, animal instinct. Every man for himself. Russ bolted back towards the loading bay. I saw another guy scramble up and over some machinery. I just ran, blindly, deeper into the plant, away from the sound of the footsteps. I didn't know the layout. I crashed through a set of heavy, plastic strip curtains into another room. The air changed instantly. It was warmer in here, and the smell was overwhelming. This was the heart of it all. This was where the real work happened. In the center of the room, under a single, flickering fluorescent bulb, was the machine. It was a grinder. An industrial-grade monster. A huge, stainless steel funnel, maybe 10 feet across at the top, leading down into a dark, ominous maw. A catwalk ran around and over it. I could see bits of stuff caked onto its sides. A deep, dark pinkish brown. The motor was off, but I could still feel a vibration from it, a latent power that made the hair on my arms stand up. I heard footsteps behind me. Not Abernathy's heavy boots, but the frantic, slapping sound of sneakers on wet concrete. It was Andrew. His face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. He'd followed me. "Jack! Wait," he gasped. Then, behind him, a silhouette appeared in the doorway I'd just come through. A large man. Abernathy. He wasn't holding a tire iron. He was holding a long, heavy flashlight, like a club. He didn't shout. He just started walking towards us, his steps slow and deliberate. My survival instinct screamed. I turned and sprinted for the far door, my only thought to get out. I ran up the short flight of metal stairs onto the catwalk that went over the grinder. It was the quickest way to the other side. Andrew was right behind me. I could hear his ragged breaths, his pounding feet on the metal grating. I risked a glance back. Abernathy was at the bottom of the stairs, starting to climb. He wasn't rushing. He looked calm. That's the part that haunts my dreams. His calmness. I was almost to the door on the other side. I was safe. And then I heard it. It wasn't a loud sound. It was a stumble. A frantic scrabbling of shoes on metal. A choked-off cry. And then, a sound I will never, ever be able to unhear. It wasn't a hard thump, like a body hitting concrete. It was a soft, heavy, squelching impact. Like a sack of wet laundry being dropped onto a pile of mud. It was followed by a split second of silence. And then, Abernathy's voice, low and rough, from the catwalk behind me. "Damn fool, kid." I didn't look back. I couldn't. I hit the door and ran, fueled by a terror so profound it felt like my soul was trying to claw its way out of my body. I found a fire exit and burst out into the cool night air, gasping, my lungs on fire. I didn't stop running until I found my bike, and I pedaled away from that place as if the devil himself was on my heels. We met up a few days later. At a local diner, the kind of place with red vinyl booths and sticky menus. The kind of place that prided itself on its burgers, made with 100% locally sourced halal beef. That was their big sign out front. No one had seen Andrew. We were all trying to act normal, but the fear was a fifth person sitting in our booth. "My cousin heard he got caught," one guy said, pushing fries around his plate. "His folks sent him off to some military school in Georgia or something. To straighten him out." "No way," Russ countered, trying to sound like he was still in charge. "He got away clean. He was probably just scared. He's laying low. He'll turn up." They were all just stories. Empty words to fill the terrifying silence. I didn't say anything. I just stared at my burger. I felt sick. That sound, that soft, wet impact, it was playing on a loop in my head. But I had to seem normal. I had to eat. So I picked it up. The bun was greasy, the cheese was melted just right. I took a bite. I chewed once, twice, and then I felt it. Something in the meat. Something that wasn't meat. It wasn't gristle. It wasn't bone. It was soft, but tough. Pliable. I discreetly spat the mouthful into my napkin. My hands were shaking. With trembling fingers, I unfolded the napkin under the table. There, nestled in the half-chewed ground beef and spit, was a small, ragged piece of royal blue fabric. Frayed at the edges. Unmistakable. I threw up in the diner bathroom for 10 minutes. I didn't just empty my stomach, I felt like I was trying to vomit up my own soul. Andrew never turned up. No one ever filed a missing persons report, which I never understood. Maybe his family was so used to him disappearing for days at a time, they just didn't notice right away. And by the time they did, maybe they just assumed he'd finally run away for good. Our little town had a way of sweeping uncomfortable things under the rug. A troubled kid from a troubled family vanishing wasn't exactly front-page news. And here's the real twist. The part 1 didn't put together until years later, after I'd started my job at the wood mill, trying to shape a life out of the wreckage of my youth. The money was real, but it wasn't the manager's. It belonged to Abernathy, the night guard, the Vietnam vet. The plant was his domain at night. He was the one running the lawn sharking business, using the plant's office as his base of operations when no one was around. Scab, the greasy dealer, was one of his collectors. He must have set Andrew up, sent a desperate kid to do his dirty work, probably to get caught and take the fall for something else. But we weren't supposed to get as far as we did. We weren't supposed to run into Abernathy's real territory, the processing floor. And Andrew didn't just trip and fall. I've replayed it in my mind a million times. The calmness in Abernathy's approach. His low voice afterward. It wasn't an accident. Andrew was cornered on that catwalk. He was a witness who had seen Abernathy's face. And in a place with an industrial grinder, there's a very simple, very permanent way to get rid of a witness. A way that leaves no body, no evidence. A way that just gets processed. I still live in Blackwood Creek. It's quieter now. The paper mill is gone. The Hallett plant got bought out by some corporate giant a decade ago, but the sign is still there, proudly serving locally sourced beef. Abernathy is an old man now. I see him at the grocery store sometimes. He moves slow, with a cane. But his eyes, they're still the same. Hard and calm. Sometimes, he'll see me in the aisle. He'll nod, just once. A flicker of recognition. A shared, unspoken secret. He knows that I know. And he knows I've been silent for 35 years, and I'll be silent until I die. Every time I see a family grilling burgers in their backyard, every time I pass that diner, I feel it. The phantom taste of that burger. The feeling of that small piece of blue cloth on my tongue. My hands have built a life. They've built a home. But they can't unbuild the past. They can't erase the memory of that night. And they can't change the simple, horrifying fact that in the summer of 1989, my friends and I ate our missing friend. We were the last people to see Andrew. In more ways than one.